Ange Postecoglou has been sacked by Nottingham Forest. The announcement coming just 19 minutes after the full-time whistle went at the City Ground, where it finished Nottingham Forest 0, Chelsea 3, where there was absolutely no surprises. There was no surprises with the performance from Nottingham Forest, the result of the match, or the sacking of Ange Postecoglou. Even Postecoglou would have been expected to get sacked by the time that full-time whistle went, because we had a really cagey appearance from him in his pre-match press conference ahead of this game, off the back of endless speculation about his job over the international break. So there's no surprise Postecoglou is gone. It's no surprise to anyone, including himself. And you know what? I think it's the right decision. Sacking someone after 8 games feels or sounds unreasonable, but I don't think it is in this case. I remember when the appointment was made, and I remember describing it as bold and brave, because that's how I felt at the time, that it was both of those things. And I still think it was bold and brave, but I also think it was incorrect. And I think they're trying to fix that mistake pretty early, because there's still 30 games left in the league, and there's still a European campaign. They can still turn this season round and make it a good one, but they have to get their next appointment right. Because going from Nuno Espírito Santo to Ange Postecoglou was a complete change from one type of manager to another. And it wasn't just going from one type of manager to another. You were going from a manager that was relatively successful at Nottingham Forest, leading them to 7th in the Premier League last season, leaving not because of results and not because of performance, but leaving because of, let's just call it, internal politics, disagreeing with the way that Nottingham Forest was now being run in the transfer market, but also speaking out about it. And I think when you speak out against your employer like that, I remember Nottingham Forest fans, I'm going to refer to Nottingham Forest fans a lot in this video, I remember them describing it as self-sabotage. And I think that's a really good phrase, because you know, when you're the head coach and the manager, you go on camera and you start criticising the way the club's been run, and you start saying you're not happy. You know what you're doing, and you know you are essentially putting a target on your back and making sure your days are numbered, because you're putting yourself into a position that's inevitable. You are not going to continue there. It's difficult. How can you continue at a club? How can Marinakis, in this case, continue with Nuno when he's been criticising the way the club is run? And he has sort of had to pick a little bit between Edu, who he really wants, and Nuno. So Nuno had to go. So that was gone. But moving to Postecoglou, who, yes, he had won the Europa League with Spurs, but they'd finished 17th in the league. So on one hand, you could say success, but on the other hand, you could say disaster with the last season at Tottenham. So it felt like a gamble for Marinakis. It felt like a punt, bold and brave. I stand by that. But he became the first ever manager in Nottingham Forest history to go winless in his first 8 games. I think he had to go, and I think a lot of Nottingham Forest fans wanted to see him go at this point. But what I will say, in defence of those Forest fans, when Postecoglou was appointed, I read as much as I could, I listened to as much as I could from Nottingham Forest fans regarding the sacking of Nuno, but also the hiring of Postecoglou. And I think the majority, the main vibe and opinion I was picking up from that fan base was that Postecoglou wasn't their number one choice. He was not the one they wanted. However, they were going to get behind him, they were going to support him, they were going to back him, and hope that they were wrong, Marinakis was right, and he was going to go on and become a success. That was the general gist I picked up. And I think they did that. Even today, in fact, today's performance and result against Chelsea, I think, sums up Postecoglou's time at Nottingham Forest. Because when that game kicked off, the Forest fans were behind them. They were loud. They were encouraging their team. Every time they chased a pass back, every time they won the ball in Chelsea's third, there was cheers, there was clapping, there was encouragement. They were behind their team from the start. And then they had a couple of big opportunities. Elliot Anderson tried to cut into his right foot, got it wrong. Chance passed him by. Then Gibbs White, that was the big one. Wide, not far wide, but wide. Awoni had a half chance really early on in the game as well. There was a few decent chances for Nottingham Forest before Chelsea even got near the Forest goal to go 1-0 up. They didn't take their chances. So when they went in at half time, the Forest fans, in my opinion, were behind their team. They were behind them. They come out in the second half, bang, free header, 1-0 Chelsea, bang, free kick, 3 minutes later, 2-0 Chelsea. And then you could just feel the moans and the groans, you could feel the mood change within that stadium. The chants from the Chelsea fans, you're getting sacked in the morning. The chants from the Nottingham Forest fans, you don't know what you're doing when you subbed off Douglas Luiz, which I still agree. I agree with them. I thought it was a strange substitution. Yes, there may be injury. Yes, there might be fitness. But it didn't feel like a really good sub for Postecoglou to be making at that point. And I think their fans got behind him. He just wasn't good enough. He just wasn't the right appointment. It was chaotic. Now, I still go back to the game against Real Betis. That first half against Real Betis that Nottingham Forest played, they were fantastic. The football they played was brilliant. They were unlucky not to go on and win the game. Funny enough, Douglas Luiz was one that had to go off, and I accept that one was due to injury. But the second half of the game switched into Real Betis' favour, and they got the late equaliser. But that first 45, the football was good against Chelsea. Today, they had their chances. The football, it wasn't bad. But then, bang, free header, 1-0 down, confidence has disappeared. It's 2-0, then eventually it was 3-0. And Forest had, up until Jesus with his chance that he should have been scoring, they didn't really have anything in the second half. There wasn't much there. At half-time, Maresca did his thing, Postecoglou did his thing, Chelsea came out the better team and won the game. So I think the sacking, I mean, the writing was on the wall before the game anyway, and it felt a bit strange to give him the job. Give him the game today. It felt a little bit strange because you could say he was getting an opportunity to turn it round, but I don't believe he was, because had Forest won today, I'm not convinced Postecoglou would have been here at the end of the season. I don't know if he would have turned it round at the City Ground. Had he won today, I feel like it would have just been delaying the inevitable until they lost another couple of games. Then he would get the sack because it would be 1 win in 10 at that point. So I felt like he was always going to go. It was just a case of when. And the answer was 19 minutes after the full-time whistle today. But you knew he was in trouble the 66th minute or whatever it was. 2-0 down, the camera panned to where Marinakis sits and he wasn't there. He was absent from his seat. So you knew Postecoglou was doomed from that point. Sacked he is. Forest now need to get this right. They've made a mistake. Fine. It's not the end of the world. Yet. They get the appointment wrong. What's the worst thing can happen? They go out of the Europa League at the group stage and they get relegated. That's the extreme version. What could go right? What would be the perfect appointment? Finish comfortably mid-table, win the Europa League. I know people might scoff at that and go, you deluded for thinking either of those things. I am giving the best case and the worst case scenario here, and I think that's what they are. And there's loads of bits in the middle where they comfortably stay up and they go out in the quarterfinals of Europa League. That's possibly the most likely thing to happen at the point. But why should they not aim to try and win the Europa League? They absolutely should, because their squad is good. They've got a really good squad there. They've assembled. Edu, whilst he's caused problems with Nuno, he had his part in assembling a really good squad at that club. You look at it now, you look at the bench they had even today, they've got a really good team. Now the next manager needs to get the new signings into the starting 11 and start getting them playing, because you can't spend that much money on the likes of Hutchinson, McAtee and Doy and not really use them that much. Jesus was brought in probably to be the main striker. You've got to make him the main striker now. Chris Wood was good under Nuno. It always felt unsustainable. So if Jesus is this future, get him into the team. And I think that's going to be the challenge for whoever comes in next. Now, Dyche is the name I've seen linked most. I think he would keep them up comfortably. And I don't think you've got to be a good manager to keep this Nottingham Forest team independently. You don't have to. But what I will say, for every team that was in the Premier League last season, and I include my own here, this is a bad season to be crap. You do not want to be crap this season. You could be crap last season, and you could be crap the season before, and you'd still stay up comfortably because the 3 promoted teams were not good enough to lay a glove on you. That is not the case this season. We've already seen Sunderland pick up a decent amount of points. We've seen Leeds putting points on the table as well. Burnley are struggling. But 2 of the 3 are looking like they've got a bit about them and they could stay up. This is not the season. You want to be one of those Premier League teams from last season underperforming, because you would have got away with it historically. You won't get away with it this season. Nottingham Forest need to make the next appointment right. Who that is, I don't know. If you're a Nottingham Forest fan, you've tuned in, you've made it this far, thank you very much. Leave your thoughts below. Let me know who you want to see. And let me know what you think about my thoughts on Postecoglou, on your club as well. And regardless, even if you're a neutral, get involved in the comments. I like it. I like interacting with you. Subscribe if you're new to Tartan Geo as well. And please do drop a like on the video. That'd be much appreciated. Marinakis, he's made a mistake. I think his hand was forced a little bit. I think he had a vision for Nottingham Forest. He had a way he wanted to do things at Nottingham Forest, and that included implementing Edu. That's done now. And his hand was forced a little bit with Nuno. And that's that. It was a scenario that happened. It was a scenario that I think that was created by more than one person at the football club. It's been dealt with now. The problem is the replacement wasn't good enough. But that's been dealt with now. He's gone. Postecoglou is sacked. He's got to get the right man in next. Because if he gets it right, they could go on and have a very good season. They've got some wonderful players at that football club. And the fans have shown today they'll get behind whoever the manager is. They turned up today, in my opinion, and got behind a man they knew was probably going to get the sack if he lost today. Winless in 7 prior to today's game. They turned up and I think they were behind him. So for the next guy in there, the fans will be behind you. I feel confident Nottingham Forest fans will be behind you. It's up to Marinakis now to get it right. Get it right, you have a good season. Get it wrong, and it could be a scary season for Nottingham Forest. I don't think they'll go down. I don't even know who they're going to appoint next. I don't think it'll be Dyche. I don't know who it'll be. I think, as we said, will Dyche work? We'll discuss that if it actually happens, I guess. I think it would, but it would just be a bit underwhelming. I think Forest should be getting a better manager in than Sean Dyche. I think they should be getting a manager in that can produce decent football and decent results. I think Dyche would do the second part of that. Who will it be? This is going to be interesting, isn't it? There's a little bit of me that respects the ruthlessness from Marinakis here, which is I've made the mistake, he's gone. I think he left the stadium. I think Postecoglou left the stadium pretty quickly. I don't know, 20 minutes after the full-time whistle, the announcement was made he's been sacked. I didn't get after half an hour. The report came out about he said some goodbyes and left, so I don't think he hung around either. He was out of there. I mean, he's all right. He's earned a few million quid and a bit of a dent to his reputation, but I think, is it any worse than it was in the summer? Probably, actually, yeah. You can't really go to Nottingham Forest and not winning 8 games and not have a little bit of an impact on your reputation. But he'll come out swinging. Postecoglou will come out fighting, because you've seen that with him in his pre-match press conference. He wasn't leaving without defending himself, and I think he made a good argument for it. He was just the wrong manager at a good club. Now it's up to Marinakis to get it right now, because if they do, they'll be more than all right. They can still have a really good season. The Premier League, something's always happening, isn't it? Anyway, I'm off. Thank you very much for joining me. I'll catch you in a bit.